Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome everyone to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have as my guest, Brian Walch. And let me tell you about Brian. So Brian is a certified executive coach, writer, and speaker. And as the owner of Shiftfocus Coaching and Consulting, he helps organizations develop their managers and build best-in-class management cultures. Before launching his own practice, he spent 25 years at a growing national consulting firm where he worked with clients in HR, IT, finance, operations, and the C-suite. As a partner, he filled diverse leadership roles in HR, business development, operations, and project execution. He built a comprehensive employer branding and recruiting program and spearheaded employee retention, everybody needs that, and development initiatives. In addition to his business experience, he led projects that have transformed small businesses, modernized government agencies, and improved enterprise-wide systems and processes. Brian uses his experience with people and systems to develop tools and programs to empower managers to lead themselves, their teams, and their organizations. Today, I wanted to have our theme be encouraging innovation at all levels in an organization. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Brian Walch. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you so much for having me on.
It is my pleasure. And I always like to talk about innovation and see also how we can help our managers be better leaders. So we are going to have a great conversation today. But before we get into the meat of all this, I always ask a simple first question. Tell the audience, where do you live? Where do you call home?
I call home and born and raised here in Anchorage, Alaska.
You are one of those people that it's like, kudos to you.
Yeah, we got a winter storm moving in, so we're going to drop below zero here in the next few days.
Okay, fine. I'm in Georgia and I'm looking at 68 degrees right now. So
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's all right. We all have our places we call home.
I know, my husband's grandfather just loved Anchorage, Alaska. Went there every year before he died. All right. So I always ask if you could please share some highlights of this journey that led you to where you are today. I gave a great bio there, but, what was your why for making those different path changes that you did along the way?
I appreciate the introduction. And like you said, I spent basically 25 years at this consulting firm. And during that time, we grew from probably about 20 people to over 200 people, and from one office to 7 offices. And so that career journey through that was really as the company grew. I just kind of kept taking on more, or additional responsibilities. I started out as a developer doing technical work and took on technical project management and account management and HR and recruiting. And it really just gave me a whole bunch of different experiences, really diverse experience. One of the things that I realized going through it that, being a developer, you don't really think about, but as I got into HR and recruiting, it's just how much I liked working with people. and how much I liked seeing people develop, when the lights come on and they
Yeah.
really kind of light up about their work. It was really enjoyable. And so, just through some changes at the organization, but also for me, kind of like at a second half career pivot, I knew I wanted to do something that was more directly working with people and had an impact on people in their lives. So that's what kind of led me to coaching and what I do today.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that, because a lot of IT people don't want to work with people. They're happy to be behind that computer that doesn't have any ups and downs and all the different things. And it's very insightful for you to be able to recognize that you did want to do something more with people and then pursue that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Why do you focus on managers?
Well, really two reasons. One was partly my own personal journey of, as a growing firm, it's not like there was somebody ahead of me laying things out. And so I
Yeah.
just knew sort of the tumultuous journey that managers go on as they transition from, kind of an individual contributor role to more of a management role. And then I also saw a lot of the projects I worked on, almost always I was working with the manager, either because they were the ones leading the project, or they were the ones responsible for kind of managing the change as a result of our project. And
Hmm.
it was just really clear that good managers had a really big impact on both the success of the project and how the employees worked with that and adopted it. And so that was one. And then, kind of from my own personal experience and just also what I saw, as managers move into this role of management, typically from an individual contributor role, they've got all this ambiguous mess they're kind of dealing with. They've come from what's usually relatively a structured, like, here's how you're going to progress in your role, to here you are, you're a manager, you got the title, you have kind of like unsure of expectations, you've lost a lot of your peers probably, and maybe some of your mentors as well. Maybe you aren't sure who should be your mentor, and
Yeah.
in general, just managers are under supported, and so I wanted to focus on them for that, like out of empathy. And then, managers have, like, we all know managers have the biggest impact on employee experience. So we all go like, people don't leave a job, they leave their manager,
Yeah, that's
right?
true. That
And
is
it's
true.
it is 100%. But there's all these negative connotations about what managers, the impact managers have. And so I also wanted to say, like, if you invest in your managers, the upside is significant as well. And I want to kind of prove that out to organizations, that if you invest in your managers, they will pay dividends, higher employee engagement, higher productivity, better retention, recruiting stronger talent, all the things you want. And, instead of looking at it programmatically, look at it from the people and invest
Yeah.
there.
I'd like to stay there for a minute, because, that's been my experience too. Um, and so oftentimes that bottom line, the budget, impacts the focus on our managers as it needs to be. I know that when I started my career, managers you had to go to 2-week training to introduce you to what it was like to go from being operational to being strategic, and to dealing with people, as you said. So how to do conflict management, situation analysis, and things like that. And it wasn't just because you were really good at doing PowerPoint or Excel did not mean that you were going to be immediately great as a manager. And then budget cuts took away that training. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, is there some magic drink that we drink that makes us tomorrow going to be a great manager? So I'd like to stay here for a little bit and just talk about how important it really is to invest in the training, and don't assume that that person knows what they need to know to be empathetic, to be that heart-centered leader that's going to have people not only want to stay with you, but really talk you up enough that other people want to come into your team.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many things going on as somebody moves into management. There's the things you mentioned, there's their own personal career journey of, like I didn't become in recruiting or in HR and realize like, oh, I have this heart for people. I took it more like I've got these duties because that was the mindset I came out of, right? Like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this. And so, you're making that transition from what do I really value and what kind of manager do I want to be? And sometimes they're being promoted into those positions and they're not sure if management's for them, but it's kind of hard to
Turn down.
say that. Yeah. And then you've got the financial incentives that are kind of clouding maybe some of the motivation. So there's just a lot going on. And you're exactly right. It's like one of the first things that gets cut is like, let's stop investing in our managers. And then it's kind of like a downward spiral.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, and then that's the expectation that part of the training I think that people sometimes miss is how important communication is, because here you are in this new role. Again, you still are thinking kind of like what you were before, and therefore expecting, well, I need to tell all my people exactly what to do, how to do it, because that's what you've been done. But as a true good manager, you need to let them figure it out.
Yeah.
Somewhat, and just be there as the guy, the support. And that's hard to do, really, oftentimes. So you have all those conflicts of what you should be doing, and then the imposter syndrome, like, oh gosh, you start to get some hard questions like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for this yet. So training is just so important to help them through that.
I don't know if you had this experience, but it's kind of on both sides. Like you think you're supposed to be these things to your employees, and then on the flip side, you have people come and go, well, you're the manager now, so you must know how to do this. And you don't want to say like, no, I have no clue how to do that. But I guess I'll figure it out because I don't want to lose my job or I don't want to have poor performance. And so you've got like a lot of like I said, unstated or unreasonable expectations when you first start that role.
One of the best mentors I had said, I only hire smarter people than me. And it was great because he didn't know how to do those new innovative. A lot of times we were doing things that was not done before. And so nobody knew what they were doing. Basically, we're just a test and trial and fail and test and trial and fail kind of thing. But the thing was that whenever you did get it and you shared that as a manager with your boss and your mentor and your coworkers, it was so much more rewarding than if your boss said, well, this is how you do every A, B, and C. That discovery can be frustrating, but it also can be so rewarding because now your confidence just gets so boosted by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comment about hiring people smarter, that idea of like trying to empower people or help them feel like you have what it takes. We're going to let you figure out how to solve this problem is important message.
Yeah, definitely. So how can managers enjoy their job more?
What I go off of is, I mean, if I told you my vision for my company or my impact, it would be like, I want everybody to enjoy work. And I think that we're designed to enjoy work. And so for managers to enjoy their jobs more, I guess I go under the precept, they need to be successful. They need to know what success looks like in their role. Yeah. I read this statistic from Gallup. It said 50% of employees are unsure of what's expected of them. And I thought, well, if that's for employees, managers, it's much higher for managers. Yeah. And so what I say is, okay, well, if you make the implied explicit, the hidden visible, and the elusive achievable, you will have success or you will have progress. And so the idea of like the implied explicit is having those discussions about what success looks like. Because I mean, I've had bosses where they're like, yeah, you should know what success is. And I'm like, oh, I don't. They're like, well, here it is. And I'll still be unclear. So I think, the boss has in mind like what success is, but how well they communicate it and how well the manager understands it is that's a discussion and a conversation and a negotiation to some degree. And so having those discussions and making sure, in that collaborative way that you kind of mentioned with your boss is really important. That's how you make the implied explicit, like what are results that you're looking for? What should I be working toward? The hidden visible is, there's a lot of ways that shows up, but the biggest way I see it is in relationships. So as I moved into different positions, I mean, I had some really great mentors, and then other times I realized I didn't have mentors and I didn't know how to find those. And one of the things that I've learned in being a coach is in talking to these really successful people is they're able to find really good people that help them, right? And so it's not, and there's just this wide open network, but it feels hidden, and it's not hidden by purpose. It's hidden because it's just not visible. And so anyway, being deliberate about that, like exposing things, making it hidden. And then the elusive achievable is, people get so busy, managers get so busy, they've got all these expectations, they're not sure what success is. And so what happens is they just start doing work. And I was this way. I was like, I'm just going to get busier and I'm going to do. And you're not moving forward. And it's really frustrating because it's like, well, I'll work harder and I'll do more. And so finding ways to help them make progress in their role is then you start feeling like I can achieve this. I can move from manager to leader. I can not be just the person turning the crank, but I can actually be helping the organization move forward, helping people move forward, and advancing in my career in ways that I want to. So I think, if we can help managers be successful, they'll enjoy their jobs more.
Yeah. I just want to kind of go back to your hidden network, because I think that's really so important. And it goes back to communication, but also goes back to almost ego, where we're a manager now. I shouldn't ask questions. I shouldn't act like I don't know anything. And some of the richest moments I've had as a manager is where I go and it's like, I have this problem. I'm just stuck. And I would sit for an hour or whatever with my boss or the team and just like talk it out. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that. And be honest, be authentic, be asking for help. And I think so much we think, well, I'm a manager now, I can't ask for help anymore. And you miss getting those nuggets of great advice, and you also miss the opportunity to network with more people that could be your future mentor. See who you click better with, that is someone, a great soundboard for you to bounce things off of.
Yeah. And when I coach people, it's funny, like sometimes we'll be getting this conversation and I'll just say, well, have you asked? And it sounds so simple, but it's almost like a light bulb moment of like,
No.
oh, I guess I could just ask. Why didn't I think of that? But we don't. Like you said, we have this manager moniker now that is like, oh, I'm supposed to know things. And if we can kind of take that off and train ourselves to be a little more curious and a little more courageous and just asking, things become kind of open up.
There was the moniker fake it till you make it kind of thing. Well, if you're trying to do that, then at some point in time you're probably going to be found out. So I think it's just best to seek help and ask questions. As a project manager, for me, important part of my first phase of any project was asking the right questions and asking a lot. And so that got me in that mindset that questions are a good thing. Questions are, asking why are we doing this? What else should we do? How else should we do it differently? And that uncovers different opportunities, different things. And that to me was what made my job fun and,
Yeah.
enjoyable, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I encourage people to do is I call it the 3 Ps of progression. So if you think about a role, it's the practice stage, then the perform stage, and then the pioneer stage. And just by giving some language to, coming into a new role and being at the practice stage, especially for managers, and making that visible,
Yeah.
because then your employees, you're not in the, oh, I got to fake it till I make it. It's kind of an open, like, I'm learning and I might
Yeah.
make some mistakes. And I just need your support, but I know I'm learning. And, your boss knows you're in the learning stage, and, articulating that out a little bit. So then it's clear, no, you should be moving into the perform stage now. And here's the things you need to be learning. But just saying, like, I'm at the practice stage can remove so much of that pressure and allow you to then say, what questions do I need to ask? And so I
Yeah.
think that's a great approach, what you said.
And it's really important, I think, to succession planning, because if you make it that, when you go into any role, you have to be, if you think of a book, you are really a chapter 1 when you take on that new role. But if you make it seem like that person, that new manager has to be at the chapter 25, then nobody's going to want that role until they get to chapter 25, and they can't get to chapter 25 until they do 1 to 24. So,
Yeah, yeah. I love the book analogy. That's great. You got to set up the stage. You got
yeah,
to the
yeah, absolutely.
characters. You got
No,
to,
exactly. Think
yeah.
of it that way. Think of it that way. So, what do you think the most important thing for a manager to do? Maybe, at each of those different phases.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like, I would say the like, my coaching methodology and what I do is, we can do all this stuff outside, but the number one thing managers can do is lead themselves, like, take responsibility for their own career. Because um, what's going to happen is you're going to discover things about yourself. If you take a little time to reflect as you move into management and move through management, you're going to learn things about yourself that are going to shape your career. And maybe, you're on the right career track, or maybe you want to, like, shape it a little bit different. But you're moving from where people are kind of telling you how to progress to, you got to take responsibility for it. And if it's not, at that first stage, it's definitely as you move into the next stage of your career or that role. So, I'd say the number one thing is take time to invest in yourself. Like you said, like, a company can take away the training budget, they can take away the support they're providing, but they can't take away you investing in yourself and your journey. And so that would be, like, the strongest number one thing, is just take ownership and responsibility for your career and your work and your brand.
And I think that's really great advice. I remember when I started out, I was just an administrative. And so administrative people didn't get any training paid for. So, and I knew that I wanted to be more at some time in my career than just a front desk person or whatnot. So I constantly invested in myself in, yes, cassette tapes, training. I have dated myself a lot there. Went to different, here's a workshop that's a 1 day, and will the office let me be off for that half a day or whatever it was? And okay, so that's a little bit of their investment. They give me time off, or you can use a vacation day for that. But
Yeah.
it was still, I always have had that mindset that I have to do self-development. I have to do my own training. I didn't go to college till I was 47, so I had a whole lot of time. But it's amazing how we sometimes forget that, and I would encourage anyone that's listening that's young that always invest in yourself. Lifelong learning is a real wonderful thing. And you learn a lot through life too. I was able to get rid of the last year of college by just using all of the things that I learned all those years that I was just paying for my own self-education. So you never know.
Yeah, nice.
I wanted to just go into when we talk about this, thinking of more, what more can we do? Let's talk about how can someone get promoted into management, and then once you're a manager, looking for that bigger step, going from a junior manager to mid and senior.
Yeah. Well, if somebody wants to get into management, the number one thing I'd say is make that known, express that. I mean, we need more good managers, and every organization wants people that want to take on more responsibility. So having that discussion of if you're interested, and finding some way to try it out. Management can't be, if you want to be a great manager, it can't be about power or control, and it really shouldn't be about money. Although that's an incentive, we should think of it more as a reward for doing a good job. So, I mean, that would say if somebody wants to go into management, just talk to your boss or talk to somebody in your organization and say, I'm interested. What does that look like? How can I try that out and see if that's a career path for me? For the manager that is looking to be promoted, I use the same 3 stages to say, okay, if you're at the practice stage, you just need to think about, how do I get good at my role? How do I, be really proficient at this? And then as you're kind of doing that and moving up in that stage, how do I create some space so then I can do something special? And that's kind of the pioneer stage, is like, how do I make my mark? How do I kind of, do something that is significant? And I think that's at that point, when you're starting to think that way, that's when you're having discussions with your boss or people in the organization about what kind of career options are available, so you can start aligning that. Some managers, though, may not want to. Like I loved the kind of that sweet spot of technical project management, where you were high enough where you could influence a project and really like do something unique, but you also had some like tangible, like I could also make sure the project went successful. That was really rewarding. And sometimes people may want to just kind of stay there, where they're doing innovative things, and they can really make things happen. That can be really rewarding. So it's just a conscious effort. But I think, if you want to be promoted, thinking about like, how do I go from being really good at my job to doing something special to put me in a position to continue advancing.
And that also goes back to the communication that we talked about early on. Is, I have experienced many people that they were happy where they were, and as a manager, I was always looking for who was maybe getting ready or ready now, type of thing. And in the company that I had, we had to actually declare the people, what level they were or whatnot. But there are people that are maybe, as we said, not in management yet, but have something, and so I was given certain projects as an admin that were manager projects, but I was given the opportunity to run them. And it was just, I know it was a test, but it just gave you the opportunity to see, is management right for me? Because sometimes it isn't, sometimes the other things that are going on in your life just really wouldn't make that the best time for you. But having that open conversation takes a lot of the stress out of, like, well, Joe hasn't been promoted anymore. Well, Joe doesn't want to be promoted, kind of thing. So a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really, when I meet somebody or talk to somebody that's like, I love my job and I love where I'm at, and they're not thinking about what's next, I really admire it. And people that, it's kind of like the craftsman mentality, somebody that is just really great at doing what they do and loves it and takes pride in it. I think that's something to be celebrated. And if they love that and want to be great at it, we should support that, and then the people that want to advance and do new things and try new things, we should support them as well.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about management culture. And culture in different companies is different things, but how would an organization best or build a best-in-class management culture?
I'll be honest, I find it somewhat challenging to talk about culture. I think everybody does. Like, the more you talk about it and what is culture, it seems the harder it is to define and to pin down. So when I think about culture, it's what the people are doing, kind of what are the shared behaviors and beliefs and attitudes that you can represent. And so management culture, I think of as just what is that like across your management team? And, how do they onboard and offboard people? Not the process, but also just the subtle ways that they welcome new team members, the way that they treat people that have left the organization, how do they manage performance? And so we know enough to know you don't legislate culture. You don't say this is our culture and that's what it is. It's like this balance between leading and influencing and then reflecting what the employees and what the organization is doing. So when I talk about building a culture, and management culture, I espouse like build it from the middle out instead of top down or bottom up. It's start with your managers. And so I have this methodology that talks about, lead yourself. And we've talked a little bit about that, lead your team, and talked about, we haven't really touched on it, but how you can build continuous improvement and design recruiting and retention programs that are right for you. And if you can start doing that across the organization, across your management team, then you've started building some culture. And then as people move into leading their organization, they can do things like what I call aspirational experimentation, but kind of the theme of what we're talking about is encouraging everybody to bring new ideas forward. But those, what can happen a lot of times is the management culture can be kind of the stopping point, right? It stops things from going down, and it also stops things from coming up. And so that encouraging innovation relies on a management culture that says, we're open, we're collaborative, and we're facilitators, things move in between us. New ideas can get vetted and then move up, and maybe broader adoption across the organization. Strategy and initiatives can move down and be supported by the management and organization. So it really starts with the managers. That's how you build a management culture. And I think, I have not found a great way to measure it, but I also think measuring it is kind of tricky, because then when you measure it, then you say, well, here it is. See, this is our culture. We have work-life balance, or we have friendliness, or whatever. And then everybody has to be friendly, or everybody has to be work-life, balanced, or whatever. So anyway, that's how I think about management culture.
Yeah, and it really does show or demonstrate the importance of knowing the people that are in your organization, that relationships are so important, that it isn't just butts in seats, but it's really that people make up the organization, and people are different. And as time goes by, those different people, as you hire different people, may change the vibe of the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you adopt? Are you trying to force it, or are you a dynamic, organic, an organism? I think organizations are more organic than not.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I think to be one that people want to stay in.
Yeah.
So our time is flying by. I mean, we could talk for days on this topic, but what would two key takeaways be that you'd like for the audience to really think about as they leave today?
Well, one, I mean, this is just my soapbox, but I believe managers can change the world. Like, if managers are happy and enjoy their work and are successful and fulfilled, they are going to impact their employees, and their employees are going to be happier and more fulfilled at work. And when we leave work, we go home to our families, our partners, our friends. If we're happier at work, we will be better in those relationships. We'll have more energy to give to our communities. We'll be more involved. We'll have a richer personal life. And so, we try to segregate things, but I think if we can make work better, we'll have better lives, better communities, better world. So that would be takeaway number one, as managers can change the world. And then the second would be to just start doing something today. Like I said, taking ownership is kind of a big part of what I try to encourage people to do. And so, that starts with not necessarily a big vision, but just what's one thing you could do today? What's one thing you could take ownership of today? What's one action you could take today? And you start doing that, and that starts the momentum going forward.
Excellent. Well, if you've enjoyed this as much as I have and haven't taken notes, you want to grab a paper and pencil if you're just listening, because I'm going to share my screen with contact information. All this information is going to be available on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. For the website, for those of you just listening, it's shiftfocus.com, shiftfocus.com. On LinkedIn, it is B Walch, BWALCH, B Walch. And in YouTube, it's at Brian Walch. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk to you about what you'll find when you go to that website, shiftfocus.com, and also LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Vicki. If you go to my website, shiftfocus.com, there's a button there. You can schedule a call with me if you want to talk more about this. I'd love to talk about it. And then at the bottom, there's a subscribe form. You can subscribe to my weekly email. I call it Simple Sundays, and it's a tip on how you can become a great manager and make Monday awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. We could do a whole segment on Sunday planning, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Brian, it's been just great chatting with you. We had a good conversation on things, and we just touched the surface. So I hope everybody does go to shiftfocus.com so that you can check out at least to get signed up for that newsletter and get some daily tips. I think, as managers, it's just so important that you do think of your own personal development. The ability to pivot when necessary is important. And sometimes, even though we hate those 360s, it's always helpful to have ask our family, friends, and coworkers, how am I doing?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Vicki. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciated the time with you.
Thanks so much. And as always, I remind everyone, life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.